Recording in progress.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, March 17th, 2026. It is 2:02 p.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. To my right is the Vice Chair, Commissioner Wayne Fournier, Commissioner Carolina Mejia. To my left, Commissioner Rachel Grant and Commissioner Emily Klaus. County Manager Leonard Hernandez, Assistant County Manager Josh Cummings. Clerk of the Board is Amy Davis. We are live streaming to the Thurston County YouTube channel. Written public comment may be received by the board up to 2 hours in advance of the meeting and distributed to the board. Action, of course, is taken at these meetings. And with that, we will call to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Fournier.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is land acknowledgement.
We would also like to start today with a land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Indigenous Salish peoples whose elders and ancestors have lived on and stewarded the lands and waterways of this county with great care, and who continue as sovereign nations today, specifically the Squaxin, Nisqually, and Chehalis people. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. The purpose of this acknowledgement is to disrupt ongoing erasure of injustices done and to remember history as a stepping stone towards healing. We commit to working together to honor our past and build our future with truth.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Next up is approval of the agenda, and we have a couple of proposed motions.
I move to postpone Department Item 9, interlocal agreement with the Port of Olympia for the transfer of 2 vessels for the Sheriff's Department office to the March 31st business meeting.
Second.
Motion and second to postpone Department Item 9 for 2 weeks. And a second discussion on that motion. I believe there was some follow-up items, information requested by commissioners that has not yet been received, so we're just accommodating that. If I hear no other discussion, call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And then we have an amended agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion and second, Commissioner Klaus. All discussion on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We have an agenda. All right, next up is a very interesting proclamation. In my estimation, proclamation of Agriculture Day, Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists, World Frog Day. Ellen Massey is going to walk us through what this is all about.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Chair. Good afternoon, Board. Ellen Massey, Management Analyst. We do have an incredible proclamation for you all today. Combined 3 really important and connected items for one wonderful proclamation. And we have some speakers that will help guide us through this conversation. So first, I would like to invite up Sarah Hammond of the Eco Studies Institute. There she is.
Hello, and thank you for having me today, and thank you all for being here. My name is Sarah Hammond. I am the Director of Science at Eco Studies Institute, a nonprofit conservation organization aimed at conserving and restoring native prairies and oak woodlands here in the Pacific Northwest. I'll start by saying that I am of Norwegian, Swedish, and German descent, and I have lived and worked here in Olympia for about 20 years. So relatively speaking, I'm pretty new to this area. In addition to being lucky enough to have been able to work with many of the incredible people in this room, I've had the honor for about 10 years now of working and learning from many of our tribal partners in this region, people from the Nisqually Indian Tribe, Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation, Squaxin Island Tribe, and Cowlitz Indian Tribe, among many others. I've learned of the rich indigenous histories of this place and how the prairies and grasslands were stewarded and cultivated for thousands of years by indigenous people with fire and harvests to support diversity of food, fiber, tools, and medicine. While so much of this has been tragically disrupted and disconnected, There is an opportunity and a responsibility to support the reconnection of people and place, bridging generations and restoring cultural practices and priorities of our region's grasslands. Camas, a native purple flower on the prairies, was an incredibly important food for nearly all of the Coast Salish tribes. It was second only to salmon in terms of its trade value due to the fact that it has an edible bulb that provides healthy carbohydrates and tastes a bit like licorice when it is cooked traditionally. Many tribal communities are rebuilding some of their important connections to the land and reclaiming tribal sovereignty through those camas harvests. However, safe places to harvest foods are limited. Many of the land they once stewarded is now behind locked gates, contaminated by modern industry, invaded by non-native shrubs, and paved over. Conservation partners, agencies, and private landowners throughout the Pacific Northwest are working with tribes to open lands to harvesting and carefully and slowly building trust through access agreements and steps towards co-stewardship of Camas Prairie cultural ecosystems. We are also incorporating tribal priorities and restoration planning on prairie preserves to allow for future safe tending and harvest of a variety of traditional foods and other resources. I encourage us all here today to consider how we, as today's grassland stewards, might do this in our work and in our lives, advocating and supporting Indigenous people, priorities, and practices on the grasslands we all know and love. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for bringing that perspective and light for us today. Next, I'd like to invite up Jake Yancey of Tracking Y Ranch.
Commissioners and public, thank you for having us here and everything else. We prepared a little slideshow for you as well. These are photographs that we've ended up taking. We'll go to the next slide. One of the big things is this is the year of pastoralists, and every bit of our business is built on our families, and it's the people that currently reside and tender for those properties are a huge part of them. This is my wonderful family. My wife kind of jokes. The other day she was filling out paperwork and wondering if we were a female-ran business. She goes, well, 3/4 of us are, so I think that definitely makes us. I can tell you it's our families that really support us and keep these lands going and everything else, and they're out there every day. It's my wonderful 2 daughters, Cadence and Chloe, and my wonderful wife, April. Once again, my name is Jake Yancey, and just about 20 years ago, my wife made the first bad decision in her life, probably, and that was marrying me. 11 years ago, she probably made the second, and at that time, the city of Olympia had purchased a family farm in Olympia, and they had sold that family farm. The farmer called me up in November, was a longtime WSU grad, and said, hey, are you interested in picking up our cow-calf herd? 11 years ago, we jumped into the cattle business, and my wife turned to me and said, how the heck are you going to make that happen? We'll go to the next slide. I quickly realized we had to do things different. The top left photograph is government properties that's managed and everything else, infested with Scotch broom, rat-tail fescue, and everything else. Top right is historically grazed lands. And the bottom left is what our pastures currently look like. These are high quality prairies, full of diverse plants and everything else. And this year, as a matter of fact, you'll end up seeing in just a couple more slides what that ends up looking like. Many of the properties that we have are right here in Thurston County. We currently steward just over 1,000 acres today, where that first year my wife looked at me and said, how the heck are we going to make that work? About 75% of our properties are in conservation easements, so they're protected for perpetuity. And we've been blessed with such relationships as Eco Studies Institute, Center for Natural Land Management, Nisqually Land Trust that we're partners with, and the rest of them are municipalities like the city of Tumwater and also private property owners. One of the downfalls with it as we end up moving forward is because we're a first generation operation, we can't purchase property at the rates that we are right now at the county, is the only thing that we've ever lost property for is development. In 11 years, we've lost 175 acres, and it's now home to 425 homes. That aerial photograph is one, on the left-hand side is our cow-calf pairs getting calved there, and on the right-hand side is Land Explorer view done in about the 40s, and on the right-hand side is Miraset Extension, which now attaches to Little Rock. This is where we used to calve out our cow-calves, but unfortunately agricultural land continues to be lost, not only in this county, but across this great nation. We operate with a program that we've described as prescribed conservation grazing. We match each one of our property's management styles with the needs of the property owner, as well as the land and the interests. Some of this may end up being for fire mitigation. Some of this may end up being for native plants. Our earlier property, that I said, was quite diverse. That's that same pasture right there. We'll go to next. We do a lot of our stuff with rotational grazing. We use a lot of temporary fences. Our cattle move across the landscape, just as wild herds of buffalo and bison would move across on the native prairies. Most of our cattle only spend about 3 to 6 days out of the whole entire calendar year. You put that in perspective, when folks think about cattle being on the ground, they often say, man, cows stay on the pasture forever. We're there 1 to 2% out of the whole entire calendar year. Their cows are on one piece of property. Go to the next slide. One of the big things that we do is what's called pasture deferment. We don't graze plants during certain times of the season. The reason why is we want them to go to seed just as they would in nature. That's a camas bulb that you're seeing on the left-hand side. Next. Other things that we end up doing, top right, we have our cattle also graze and mitigate a lot of invasives like thistle. They eat that. It has about the same nutritional value as alfalfa. Bottom left, we work with biological controls that are natural, like the cinnabar moth to control tansy ragwort. In the bottom right, we can find our cattle and stuff to mitigate scotch broom and everything else where they've stripped off the leaves on that. We heard from Sarah earlier talking about the power of camas and everything else as a first person's food. This is a property that many of you may end up knowing that's in your back door. As a matter of fact, this is right behind the stadium in Tenino. This is a field, 80-acre property that we have, and this is about 4 years ago. That whole field now is pretty much all camas, and I think 2 years ago they started the first, the tribes came out and did harvest, and now they're gonna continue every year. We use no chemical sprays or anything else so that they can enjoy that as a first person's food. One of the big things that we end up doing is 10 years ago, we needed land. And one of the things that we saw was a bunch of folks were cutting for Oregon spotted frog and mowing and such. And we said, hey, our cattle can do that exact same thing if you allow us to do it when grass, everything's dried out and everything else. This has been a project that our Oregon spotted frog property out at Mymica Creek, which next speaker, Nick George, will talk to you about. These are all photographs that came right out there. I think the most important one out of this is not only that the cattle have created that habitat without the costs of management, but in the top left-hand corner is a great example of the partners that come together to make these sort of programs work. And Nick's one of those people. I'll hand it over to you.
Nice.
Thank you so much, Jake. Next, I would like to invite up Nick George with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
All right. Thank you, Ellen, and it's good to be here today. Good to meet all of you and see familiar and friendly faces. So I'm gonna kind of roll through some things about Oregon spotted frog and the management that we've been using. And once again, I'm Nick George. I'm with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm the state coordinator for the Partners for Fish and Wildlife program. And so what this program does, it's in all 50 states, and we offer financial and technical assistance to private landowners. We're trying to find those win-win scenarios that meet landowner objectives and also meet objectives for priority wildlife species. And so we're throughout the state, we have focus areas, but one of our focus areas that we've been here the longest is South Puget Sound. And so not only do I live here locally, but we have a local biologist that's working with our private landowners. And one of our priority species is one that you may know a lot about with the HCP or may not know much about, but it's Oregon spotted frog. And so it is a medium-sized frog, native frog here to Western Washington, ranges up to British Columbia and then all the way to Northern California historically. And it requires permanent water. So unlike some of the other frogs that we see that can kind of be terrestrial and be up on land in certain parts of the year, Oregon spotted frog is traditionally going to be in the water, and it requires shallow water with short stature vegetation for breeding. The breeding season is just about right now. It kind of kicks off around Valentine's Day. And right now we are in the thick of it. So open invitation to any of you all. If you ever want to get out on a spotted frog survey and see some egg masses, just get a hold of me and we can go look at that habitat. The main impacts of the frog have been two things in particular. Habitat loss, yes, by development, but also non-native species. So reed canary grass, it was introduced here long ago, kind of naturalized at this point. and it really crowds out their habitat for breeding, and also bullfrogs. And a lot of us, we know the calls of bullfrogs, and they might be a cool frog for us to see, but they are non-native and they prey upon our native frogs and have really decreased the population. So I can talk a little bit about the partnership that we've implemented here locally for the benefit of our private landowners and conservation community. It's called the Frogs on the Farm Partnership. And it is a formal partnership between the Partners for Fish and Wildlife Program and the Thurston Conservation District. But it's been a collaborative approach with private landowners and other groups such as Center for Natural Lands Management, Eco Studies, NRCS, and like I said, our wonderful private landowners and land managers. The objectives have been increasing Oregon spotted frog habitat, but also enhancing agricultural viability and conducting community outreach. Next slide, please. So some of the problems that are impacting this frog, we talked about the vegetation. So reed canary grass outcompeting native vegetation. The cost, Jake kind of mentioned that, where traditionally we would mow or use brush cutters, a lot of labor, a lot of fossil fuels to manage this habitat. And so that was not a sustainable tool. It costs a lot of money, a lot of resources. And so when this was left unchecked, we did not have usable habitat that was sustainable for our private landowners, our government organizations, or other land managers to keep up with. Next slide, please. So, solution, well, cows, right? So this is an aerial shot of the same property, Mima Creek, that Jake was talking about. And you can see we have pasture overlapping with some seasonally saturated soils. And so we don't know a lot of things, right? But we know one thing, cows eat grass, and we're trying to manage grass. So we put cows out there in a responsible way that they could intensely be rotated through these pastures and knock down the vegetation in a sustainable way that was good for the environment, the objectives of these frogs, and also the objective of the agricultural producer. The cost savings was immediate. We didn't have to hire crews. We did not have to rely on schedules, weather, all the things that were ultimately barriers to our projects moving forward. And so after that initial investment of fencing, getting water out there for our cattle, there's little to no cost being incurred for the lifespan of these practices. Maybe some fence maintenance, maybe just making sure that we're winterizing, the water sources throughout the winter. But with the way we're doing it, going below the frost line, there was little of that as well. But also that agricultural viability, incentivizing landowners to restore this habitat and working on those win-win solutions. Next slide, please. So sorry, I couldn't find another picture that wasn't myself, but yeah. So another thing that we did through this program was engaging with landowners. So working with the conservation district and other organizations, we did educational workshops, landowner surveys, listening sessions to really understand where are people at, right? This is not just government coming in and saying, we know what's best, we're here to help. No, we want to know where people are at and how we can help meet their needs, understand their concerns, and most importantly, build trust. Next slide, please. And so what we learned was 53% of participants are willing to participate, which, okay, that's just over half, but that's huge, right? Like if you have that right off the bat, that's so much ground to build off of. And we identified the barriers to participation, loss of property value, concerns about regulation, government involvement, all valid concerns, and their needs, what people needed to make this viable for them, their objectives, and then moving into the future.
That's a cooler picture than the one of you, Nick.
So kind of things that we learned from these surveys and these listening sessions were people, their attitudes were the strongest drivers to their willingness to participate. Their trust in government was connected to those attitudes. And as people became familiar with Oregon spotted frog, that had a direct correlation to their positive shift in attitudes. And it was wonderful kind of working through this. I'm a trained biologist. I've been fortunate enough to work across the country. But we brought in one of our regional social scientists to help with these efforts. And her mind going through this, connecting the dots, it was kind of beautiful to see the intersection between the frogs and the people's the needs and desires to manage this habitat. So next slide, please. So the next steps are continued landowner education and engagement opportunities. So raising the awareness is going to raise the willingness. And we actually, the Conservation District was just successful in another grant with ASRP to do more community outreach. So that's something we'll be working with them on conducting, hopefully this summer. There'll be more to come there. Looking at the collaboration and having landowner assurances. So listening to the community and some of their barriers and concerns, it's the need for regulatory certainty is one of the things that always pop to the top and how it would increase willingness to participate. And then coordinated on-the-ground project implementation, working hand in hand with these landowners, not just saying, okay, you've been successful in a grant, here's the money to do it, or here are the tools to do it, but actually being on the ground with them, working with our other partners in this collaborative sense to help them implement these projects. Yes, so in summary, grazing, it's an affordable, sustainable tool that cannot, not only to be done on private lands, but this is something that can be done on public land, government land, any land that's managed for Oregon spotted frog. Incentivizing privately owned working lands is critical. These individuals are who are managing the habitat for us and for generations to come. And if we're not incentivizing those things, their willingness to participate is probably going to be lower. And then groups such as Partners Program, NRCS, Conservation Districts, and many of our NGOs are offering both technical and financial assistance. So these programs are here for private landowners to utilize. So I recommend reaching out to them or myself directly, and we get you more information. I think that's my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. We appreciate you being here today. Next, I would like to invite up Jennifer Colvin of Colvin Ranch.
Hello, and thank you, commissioners, for having me here today. I'm Jennifer Colvin. I'm a fifth-generation rancher in Tenino at Colvin Ranch. I'm so happy to be here today to celebrate Thurston County's long history of agriculture. As Sarah mentioned, of course, starting well before the county was established. My great-great-grandfather, Ignatius Colvin, arrived here in 1849 and homesteaded in Tenino. He established Colvin Ranch in 1854 when he registered his livestock brand. But of course, long before the earliest settlers arrived, the people of the Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation and other First Peoples cared for this land that we called home today. The native prairies in Thurston County that provide the best grazing land and wildlife habitat would not exist today if it weren't for the people who have managed these lands for thousands of years. Today, less than 3% of our native prairies remain, but the prairies that still exist here fulfill many roles in our community. Thurston County's prairies preserve the rural character and sense of place unique to our region. They connect the people to our shared heritage, to our community, and to nature. Native prairies provide the wildlife habitat for threatened and endangered species and act as working agriculture lands that contribute to a strong local food system, provide rural jobs, and support families. Today, this legacy of caring for the land can be seen when our leaders prioritize agricultural viability and the preservation of farmland. When individuals choose to support family farms by shopping local, and when livestock producers invest their time, money, and talent to enhance these rangelands for our community and the next generation who will take over as stewards of the land. So now I'd like to take a moment to recognize the people here today who are the pastoralists and ranchers in our community. If you raise livestock, and it doesn't matter if it's 2 goats or 500 beef, I would invite you now to stand so that we can recognize the important role you play in caring for the land and contributing to a strong local food system. So let me see my fellow livestock producers there. And I'd also like to take a moment to express appreciation for those who support landowners and the agriculture community by helping implement conservation projects that provide wide-reaching environmental benefits throughout Thurston County and beyond. So, if you work for any one of the many nonprofits, organizations, or agencies involved in conservation and the enhancement of working agricultural lands, I would invite you to now stand so that we can recognize your contributions and thank you for that as well. Oh, come on, I've seen the Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you being here today to support and celebrate agriculture in Thurston County. Thank you so much and enjoy Agriculture Day.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, I would like to invite up Stephen Bromwell of WSU Extension.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. Thanks for the nice talk so far. I don't think too many communities could do a better job of connecting World Frog Day, International Day of Rangelands and Pastoralists, and the National Ag Day. So it's wonderful to see all the speakers paint these connections. As Ellen mentioned, I'm the WSU Extension Agent for Thurston County. Wanted to thank the commissioners for setting aside this day for the proclamation for Ag Day, Frog Day, and International Day of Rangelands and Pastoralists. Just first of all, National Ag Day, it's a wonderful opportunity just to assemble, to recognize the people and the places responsible for working lands management and all the values that we get as a society from those ranchers, livestock producers, tribal land stewards. Because we can very much combine working lands with conservation, and we do a really good job of that, as you've seen in this county, and we're doing better all the time. What are the values and why do we care about this? I always like to touch on this topic because I think these agricultural lands and conservation lands are so important. If we don't have agriculture, we lack a major connection to the land. That tangible sense of caring for living things is something that can't be achieved in other ways. And with a society that's increasingly focused on technology, we're rapidly losing that sense of connection through tending for living things. Secondly, it provides skills and capability to our youth, correct? To have that opportunity to raise an animal, to take care of a piece of land, to have a responsibility to do. This is something that is so vitally important to what it is to be human, and I love that agriculture and these projects are providing this for our youth. Really importantly as well, third one, economic opportunity from rural areas. Increasingly, there's fewer and fewer job opportunities in rural areas. They're economically depressed, there's not an opportunity, and where the economy goes, so the culture goes, and we lose that sense of fiber that holds us together as a people. And of course, lastly, and not lastly, but at least the last one I'll mention, healthy and safe local food. And I love that some of the speakers so far have talked about shopping local and supporting our local producers. Too few of us exercise that opportunity, but we need to be doing that more and more into the future. So that's National Ag Day. Second, IYRP. What is IYRP? The International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists. I was asked to try to connect the local part of this effort to the global. When you think of International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists, you might think, do we really have rangelands? Do we really have pastoralists? But don't get too hung up on the terminology here. When you think about rangelands, think about prairie, think about grasslands, and think about our pasture lands. And when you think about pastoralist, think about rancher, livestock keeper, and tribal land steward. So these are an opportunity for us, even though we might not characterize ourselves with this terminology, to really connect ourselves with a global movement. And the reason that we're here for this proclamation, and I think you've heard some of this, there's a sense of urgency with where we are in the world right now, correct? And I'll name 4 reasons for this proclamation and why it's important. The loss of habitat and grasslands. Conversion to non-agricultural uses, non-habitat uses of grasslands is happening both locally and it's happening worldwide. Jennifer Colvin just mentioned there's only 3% of local prairies remaining. So conversion of these lands is a hugely important and pressing topic, and it's one of the main reasons why the IYRP was created for this year of 2026. Second, and I've mentioned this a little bit, but the decline in rural land-based livelihoods, that presence of economic opportunity that is continuing to go down. And I had the opportunity to travel throughout several countries in Europe this past year, and land abandonment and migration from urban to rural areas is happening at accelerating rates because that economic opportunity isn't there for young people to stay on the land. The loss of indigenous cultural values because of removal of indigenous populations from grasslands and prairies. So this ecological knowledge that goes with centuries of experience managing these landscapes, not only here locally, is being lost, but all over the world. And it's something that we need to take action to reverse. And then a fourth one, which we might not think a whole lot about, but is on really good display here with the previous speakers, is we don't value the ecosystem services that come out of our working land sufficiently. There's financial value in all of the things that producers do in terms of carbon storage, water storage, biodiversity habitat. And if we're conscientious about how these working lands are managed, like have been illustrated here, we can achieve those things and support these ecosystem services on working lands. So I'll just read a few quotes to kind of illustrate for us why we should appreciate these grassland biomes. Well, first, they cover a tremendous amount of area. Right locally, the majority of agricultural land is in pasture lands and grasslands, 26,000 acres in this county, and it's still only a fraction of what the prairies used to be in the past. Across the world, half of the Earth's land surface is in grasslands, is in herbaceous land cover in this biome. We might think wetlands, we might think mountains, forests, and all the rest, but grasslands cover over half of the Earth's terrestrial surface. They're also one of the most biodiverse ecosystems on the planet. And this is really remarkable. Again, we tend to think of tropical rainforests and wetlands and marine biodiversity, but grasslands are one of the most biodiverse ecosystems in the world. And the Puget Sound prairies will have dozens and dozens of species of flora and fauna in them. Grazing lands and the products and their goods from them are produced on land that sometimes is unsuitable for crops. So sometimes we hear the debate, well, we shouldn't be raising livestock, we should be raising foods for human consumption. These landscapes are often very well adapted to really rough conditions, rocky soils, dry conditions, cold conditions. And so there's very much ecological case for how grazing animals can connect humans to the land in locations and circumstances where crops cannot. And these are some of the most sustainable forms of production as well, perennial-based, deep root systems, integration of native plants in these habitats. And they provide just a myriad of products for us: milk, food, fibers, manure, meat, and many others. Globally, 1 in 8 people support themselves from these grasslands. A really interesting one, my last one I'll mention, is that indigenous pastoralists and ranchers that manage the land in a sustainable manner, they're a repository of traditional knowledge. People understand these places by working in them, not just by visiting them. If you want to go out and try to spot a rare species on farmland, the first person you should go to is the farmer, the rancher, the tribal land steward, because they're out there every day watching and they are very well attuned. And it's amazing to me in my travels last year to see how well people understood the habitat and the species on their land. So with that, I do want to make a mention to our youth, because there is no future without our youth involvement. And so grasslands and prairie pasture lands, they're vital for our youth and they're vital for our future. We need to be finding ways to help them stay on the land, which means land access, which means opportunity to access markets, training programs, and all the like that we can provide. So we need to be very conscientious and forward-thinking in that. So with that, I just want to thank the Board and County Commissioners for assigning this day as the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists, World Frog Day, National Ag Day. I will just mention before I close off, there's an exhibit out in the foyer here. And we've been distributing these exhibits which celebrate pastoralists and rangelands all over the American West. They'll be everywhere from Hawaii to Canada to Mexico to Arizona, Colorado. And we'll have 4 of these that'll be circulating around libraries for the whole year of 2026. So please take a look. Really beautiful artwork, which has been the theme for this project, to bring together art as a means of communicating about landscapes and working lands and the people who care for them. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. And last but not least, we do have one of our very own, Kevin Jensen, here to wrap us up a little bit. And then we have some great things.
Good afternoon, commissioners, public. I'm sure you're all here for Ag Day. And I wore my green for Ag Day, so I don't get pinched. So my name is Kevin Jensen. I'm the Ag Program Manager for Thurston County. I'm also a 4th generation cattle rancher in South Thurston County. So this day is really special to me for obvious reasons, but I'm dedicated to agriculture in the county. Watching it succeed and move through the generations like Jennifer discussed. We want to see this continue on for the next 5, 6, 10 generations on. I do want to give a shout out to all agriculture. It's leaning heavily on animal ag today and grazing, which is very important. But we've got an awesome aquaculture industry, timber, Christmas trees, the things you don't eat that's still ag, pumpkins, fruit, veggies. So, as you're going home today, depending on how your afternoon goes after our ag day, but you might want to think about on the drive home, how can I support ag today? How can I support Thurston County ag? There's products available all over the place, and it's not too hard to find them. I also want to give a shout out, looking around the room, that we talked heavily on cattle today, but grazing in general is from a lot of different critters. We've got goats that do fire control, brush control. We've got sheep. So conservation grazing is bigger than just cattle. Obviously, I'm a cow guy, so I like cattle. But and I don't necessarily like goats, but they still have a good place, and it's an important role. That it's really just utilizing some of these creatures that they're just doing what they do. They just eat stuff, right? So rather than pouring gasoline, weed whackers on these riparian areas, we can just utilize things that are here and just doing their cow thing, doing their goat thing. So the county's ag program is what I'm going to talk about today. It's really in its infancy. I've been at the helm for about 2 years, and it's really only about 3 years old. It's really the first time in history that Thurston County has public grazing lands. So it's new, but it's pretty cool. So it's a chance for Thurston County to start giving back and to some of the ag operators, especially with livestock, to get these conservation practices on the ground on county-owned lands. So far the county's acquired approximately 225 acres through acquisition. There's some conservation easements in the pipeline that are going to happen hopefully sooner than later. But the county's on track to acquire a significant amount of land in this county. So my goal is that at least on the bigger properties that we get animal livestock on and conservation grazing practices. The speakers that you've heard today, these presentations are powerful. They mean something. We've got generational impact going on here, and getting these folks involved with the county and the county-owned lands is very important for all of us. So we've set up stakeholder groups specific to conservation grazing. What that means, it means something a little different to everybody, but it's really taking in the ecological aspect of when you're inserting animals onto the land. You're not just turning them out, shutting the gate, and then you'll come back in 6 months to check on them. You're really working with the lands. And that's really kind of the basis of conservation grazing. And so, with these stakeholder group meetings, we're getting together, we're looking at some of these different ways of how we can take an individual county-owned property and actually graze it correctly. What animals work best, things like that. So there's been adjusted fees for permitting so that the continued land acquisition, land acquisition can continue with the HCP program. There's a grant-funded working land strategy to really update the current county-led ag protection systems that are in place, come up with new ideas for ag protection, ag benefit, and maybe utilize some of the old existing programs like TDR and PDR that have been hanging in the shadows. Speaking of the shadows, I don't know if I've been in front of you guys before. I kind of lurk in the shadows of ag in the background, so it's weird standing here. Just throw that out there. Usually Ashley gets to be on the podium, and I'm kind of hanging in the back in the grass out in the weeds with the cows. Just want to shout out to the partners. So this program, HCP program, conservation grazing at the county level cannot happen without partners. So there's an extensive list here, but we've got Nick George here with U.S. Fish Partners Program. We got Conservation District, TCD represented. There's just a whole bunch of people that we can't do this without them. We need their knowledge. We need their just input on how we do these various things. Land acquisition. Sarah's here with Eco Studies, wherever Sarah went. Sarah's there. JBLM, Sentinel Landscapes, U.S. Fish Service. That's not an extensive list. That's not an order. That's just kind of a snapshot of a few groups. Obviously, Stephen with WCU Extension, to try to keep Kevin on track of what he's supposed to do, which is a full-time job, as Ashley knows. Yeah, so, and it was brought up, I'm gonna end with youth support. Stephen brought that up. My kids were showing animals at the fair last year, so I got thrown into the county fair all week, into the lamb manure and everything else. But I highly encourage those of you with the public, commissioners, anybody watching this to get out, support your Thurston County Fair. Whether you go to the market sale, it's just being there, supporting the kids, whether they knitted a 4-H quilt or whether they have animal livestock there. The county fair needs your support. There's big things happening, but really encourage businesses to come out and support the youth, because honestly, the kids that are in those barns are the future of agriculture in the county. So if those go away, so does ag. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin, and all of our speakers. So wonderful. I wanted to acknowledge CPED has done a ton of work to help with this proclamation specifically. Miriam is with us and has helped a lot. We have Olympia Farmers Market here so that it's supported. The Ag Park and Steady is also available, and the Thurston County Conservation District. And then we have a lot of other wonderful things outside as well in the boardroom. So we have snacks, light hors d'oeuvres that we always do, but as was talked about today, we have cheese from Tuna Worth, which is a local creamery, cheesery. 8 Arms Bakery for some crackers. We have biscotti from Blue Heron Co-op, and then we have jerky from Colvin Farms as well. If you haven't heard, we do have a baby cow outside. And we also have a tree frog outside. So World Frog Day and Ag Day combined. And then we also have the International Year of Rangelands exhibit that Stephen mentioned as well. So a lot of wonderful things to engage over in our break if we have an opportunity for a little bit of a break. I know it's been a long one today. But I will turn it back over to you, Chair, for reading of the proclamation and potentially a photo if we have time for it.
Okay, well, we will, thank you, Ellen, so much. We will read the proclamation. We will take a cow petting recess. And then we will have a photo and reconvene. So go ahead, Vice Chair.
This is a proclamation for Thurston County for Agriculture Day, Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists, and Frog Day. Whereas agriculture has long been an essential part of Thurston County's history, economy, and rural character, contributing to local food systems, working lands, and community well-being. And whereas Thurston County's farmers, pastoralists, ranchers, and agricultural workers play a vital role in stewarding the land, preserving biodiversity, strengthening rural economies, and ensuring resilient food systems for present and future generations. And whereas prairies, pasture lands, and grazing lands within Thurston County maintain soil health, water quality, wildlife habitat, and open space, while supporting sustainable livestock production. And whereas frogs and other amphibians are vital indicators of environmental health and contribute to a balanced ecosystem in Thurston County and around the world. And whereas Thurston County faces ongoing challenges related to climate change, development pressures, land conversion, and the long-term viability of agricultural lands, making the protection and support of agriculture, grasslands, and indicator species increasingly important. And whereas recognizing Agriculture Day in 2026 as the United Nations designated International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists provides an opportunity to celebrate local producers, the region's prairie grasslands, promote agricultural education, and reaffirm the county's commitment to sustainable agriculture, farmland preservation, and rural livelihoods. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Thurston County Commissioners hereby proclaims March 20th as World Frog Day, March 24th as Agriculture Day, and 2026 as the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists in Thurston County, adopted the 17th day of March 2026 by the Board of County Commissioners.
All right, so we'll be in recess till about 3:05, and the folks who are here supporting the proclamation, we'd like to get a big group photo, including all the folks that stood up. So just come join us over by the steps, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
In progress.
Okay, it's 3:07 PM. We are back from our recess for our proclamation, and we are picking up with item 3 on the this afternoon's agenda, which is public comment related to agenda items. I'm gonna go through the folks who've signed up. We'll go through folks who are online. I will make at the end of that an allowance for anyone who's got public comment on general matters that has a time crunch and has to leave. We'll go ahead and take that as well. There will be a point at the end of the meeting for any general public comment. But let's start with the folks who signed up related to agenda items. I'm gonna read through the guidelines and then we'll call folks one by one. The commissioners welcome comments from the public. There are guidelines governing such comments to ensure they are appropriate. Do not take advantage of the fact that most meetings are televised. When called, please introduce yourself and the area of the county in which you reside. State which agenda item you are speaking to. Address the board, not audience or staff. Please silence your cell phones. The board does not directly respond to public comment, but the county manager may follow up with specific items on an as-needed basis. Speakers will have 3 minutes to address the board. Meeting attendees cannot donate their speaking time to other speakers. Please be respectful. The board reserves the right to restrict a person's opportunity to address the meeting for a good cause. No comments that are lewd, offensive, inflammatory, hateful, defamatory, or discriminatory in nature. No outbursts of any kind. No comments that are commercial in nature, such as promotion of a for-profit business. Please withhold remarks about pending land use permits or similar matters that could eventually come before the board on appeal. No electioneering comments, and all written materials provided to the county may be considered public record and subject to public release upon request pursuant to the Public Records Act, Chapter 4256 of the RCW. Thank you for cooperation with that. First up is Dawn Baker with Dave Champagne on deck.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Dawn Baker, and I'm the Service President of Thurston County Realtors Association. Thank you for the continued discussion regarding the proposed home energy score ordinance. The Thurston County Realtors Association appreciates the time and effort the county has invested in addressing climate goals and housing sustainability. As the professionals who guide buyers and sellers through thousands of real estate transactions in Thurston County each year, realtors see firsthand how housing policies interact with real-world market conditions. Our goal is not to stop progress, but to ensure that any policy adopted is clear, practical, and workable for both consumers and the housing market. After reviewing the proposed policy, we must reiterate that TCRA opposes the ordinance in its current form. However, Realtors also recognizes the potential value of a voluntary home energy score model that supports consumers' awareness while avoiding unintended consequences for housing transactions. We believe the ordinance still contains several significant implementation questions and technical issues that warrant additional discussion. For that reason, we respectfully request that the county extend the pause on consideration of the ordinance and convene a collaborative work session involving elected officials, county staff, and a small group of experienced realtor practitioners familiar with the HES discussion. Such a work session would allow us to address several practical issues that could substantially improve the policy, including ensuring the ordinance uses accurate and consistent real estate industry terminology, clarifying how compliance would be handled within the transaction process if adopted, avoiding the use of Northwest MLS as an enforcement body, as MLS systems are not designed to serve as regulatory compliance mechanisms, exploring whether it would be better to have the buyer initiate the request or perform the assessment themselves during the real estate transaction rather than at the time of listing. This may better accommodate changing market conditions and reduce impediments of transaction disruption. Discussing the TCRA's proposed alternative energy score options that support consumer choice and transparency while still advancing the county's climate objectives. Policies that intersect with housing markets require careful coordination with industry practitioners to avoid unintended consequences and implementation challenges. Taking additional time now will help ensure the county adopts a policy that is clear, practical, and workable in real estate transaction. Realtors are committed to being constructive partners in these discussions. Through collaboration, we believe it's possible to develop an approach that supports the county's goals while also protecting the stability and accessibility of the housing market. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. We have Dave Champagne with Barack Gale on deck.
Say what?
Oh, I just said Dave Champagne, Barack Gale's on deck.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I couldn't say it better than Dawn Baker, and the local realtors have done a great job. My name's Dave Champagne.
I'm also a real estate agent. I'm representing a lot of independent real estate agents. I'm not a member of the Realtors Association. I appreciate the suggestions that Ms. Baker just made, and I agree with everything she said. I'll speak a little more plainly and off the cuff about this. I think that's a terrible idea. And I think it is because I have been in real estate around here for almost 35 years, 26 of which with my own company, Castle Realty. And I've worked with this community for long enough to have seen the Mazama pocket gopher disaster impact local residents and property owners to the tune of millions of dollars. And once it happened, it was 10 years trying to get rid of it. And now it's been reduced to a mitigation situation, which is, it's something. But I remember before we needed to get county time of transfer certificates on septic systems. And I'm going to tell you that licensed professionals pumping and inspecting a septic system were perfectly capable of giving us the information we needed to conduct transactions in a fair way. Buyers should be made known of what they're buying. And I agree with that. And the energy efficiency of a home, we don't need to debate climate change to know that it's important to know how efficient the home is you're buying. It'll impact your pocketbook afterwards. But there are two principles and two pillars of the real estate industry, in this area at least. One of them is, of course, caveat emptor, buyer beware. They are reminded often through the transaction as the best practices of real estate agents mandated by the Department of Licensing and the MLS to encourage your buyers to get every inspection possible and know what they are buying. The burden is on the buyer. That is a principle that's been around for thousands and thousands of years, and it's one that still holds up today. The other principle, the other pillar, is seller's disclosure. A seller is required to disclose any material defects about a property, and that is by law, and there's a whole form devoted to it, and that has been a useful instrument. But real estate agents know the best practice for selling a property is for that seller to get that home inspection done yourself ahead of time. Get that septic pumped ahead of time. We advise our clients to do that because it is in everyone's best interest, and I agree with what Commissioner Klaus had said, that markets work best when buyers and sellers are fully informed. I completely agree. I do not think it's the role of government to intercede and mandate these kinds of inspections. I have heard 3 or 4 things that just drive me crazy. And one of them is, it's only going to be $150 to $300. There is no way you know that, and that needs time for discussion. And the other ones are that, it's happening everywhere, so we just have to go along with it. And I don't think that's true. I'd love time to discuss it. I do appreciate what you're all trying to do. I'll show up for those meetings. I hope we have them. So pause, what is it? Pause the mandate? I like that. It's a stopping point. I'd like to stop it, but let's start with pause. Thank you all for your time and for listening. Thank you very much.
Rob Gale with Christina Janis on deck.
Hello, honorable commissioners. I strongly support adoption of the home energy score ordinance. I appreciate that the realtors are speaking sincerely from what they believe are the best interests of their clients. I respect that. And I would invite them to consider not only the immediate transaction, but the longer arc of home ownership for families, the monthly energy burden, the comfort and health of the home, and the climate future that our children and grandchildren will inherit. I'm reminded of an ancient Talmudic legend about Honi, the rainmaker. Honi was taking a walk in the countryside when he came upon an old man planting a carob tree. Honi asked him, "Old man, how long will it be until this tree bears fruit?" And the man said, 70 years. And Honi replied, "My goodness, do you expect to live that long?" And the man answered, my grandparents planted for me, so of course I plant for my grandchildren." That's what this ordinance is about. It's not radical. It is simply planting a tree. It gives future home buyers honest information. It helps families save money. It helps our community reduce emissions. And it honors the climate commitments that the county has already adapted, which, by the way, I think corroborate perfectly with the vision and mission of the county. You adopted the climate plan in 2021. The vote is a chance, this vote is a chance to show that those commitments are not mere slogans, but really seeds. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak.
Christina Janice with John Pettit on deck. Is Janice not here? Well, okay, we will go to Mr. Pettit with Lynn Fitzhugh on deck.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Pettit from East Olympia. I started in real estate when I was 18 years old, right out of high school. I can assure you that nobody on the Board of County Commissioners has any actual real estate experience. You may have bought a home, but you know nothing about the process of the selling of a home. As a seller, what you're suggesting is when you list it, you need to spend $1,000. And you're saying, how did you come up with $1,000? Well, I did some research, and commonly the actual inspector that might be sent out there is going to be $450 to $700. Now, Thurston County already has a program of which is a fine example for you. It's the time of transfer on septic systems. Now that's ordered after the sale. It has to be recorded after the sale. Okay. But this has to be done before and when it's listed. So before you can sell it, you need to spend $1,000. Now, the reason I said 1,000, let's add up. Time of transfer, the paperwork alone is $300 and some dollars. The recording fees, another $300. You know, I think that you're trying, I consider this pretty much political, but I think that what you're trying to do right now is you're trying to help people, potential buyers. You need to be representing the people that are here, the people that are owning property. This particular provision is not for property owners. It is for property buyers. The property owners are the ones that actually own it. The property owners are the ones that'll have to pay all these fees just to hope to sell their house. And when you talk about affordable housing, adding another $1,000 for something that can just as easily be put in a request for an actual score, or perhaps even better, the idea that once an actual sale is done, prior to closing, having that score have to be made at that point once you have an authentic deal. But the idea of demanding people to spend money up front when they're not sellers, they're buyers, you're demanding sellers to actually spend money first is wrong. You need to give it some thought. I think the suggestions the realtors made on this would be really good. Get some experience in from the people that are in the business of helping people get housing. Thank you.
Lynn Fitzhugh with Betsy Norton on deck.
Lynn Fitzhugh from Restoring Earth Connection, Executive Director. There are two kinds of climate denial. One that denies the actual science, the other that admits that climate change is real, but acts as if we can continue doing business as usual and the problem will somehow magically fix itself. The reality is that being disconnected from our impact on Earth, we have created climate impacts in every sector: buildings, energy sources, transportation, agriculture, manufacturing, etc. This means we will have to make changes in every industry to stop climate change. This ordinance asks the real estate industry to do their part, a very, very small part. I was very dismayed at the hearing to hear a number of realtors start their testimony with, "I believe in climate change, but," and then go on to claim that they needed nothing to change for them. I usually try to avoid being grim about climate change, but apparently it is necessary to point out that scientists currently state that the trajectory we are on will lead to an incompatibility with life on this planet. That anyone born this month will not live out their natural lifespan. That may seem like hyperbole to some. I would invite them to look up at what the modeling actually says. With that perspective, I think asking homeowners to have a 2-hour energy audit done on their home, just like now is done with inspections, and put the score on the MLS listing, just like many other pieces of information are put on there at the time of listing, is not a huge burden on either homeowners or real estate agents. I do not think that $200 to $350, depending on the size of your house, is a burden. Certainly a bargain in terms of the collective threat that we face. There are provisions in this ordinance to exempt certain low-income sellers. I think existing data from other cities demonstrates it does not delay listing or sales. It also allows the buyer to take a bigger loan to get the work done if that is their choice. It is time to pass this common sense ordinance that can help be one of the many changes that needs to happen to stop climate change. Thank you.
Betsy Norton with Beth Such on deck.
Hi, Commissioners. My name's Betsy Norton. I live in Olympia. I am also a member of the South Sound Bird Alliance Conservation Committee. I would just like to tie this to some of the earlier discussions and presentations you saw on the Oregon spotted frog. I saw my first frog eggs a week ago. I'm very excited. And the reason is because the species are still there and we are protecting them and we are taking action to protect them. And one of the biggest threats to them is climate change. It's in that context that I just want to reiterate and echo my colleagues in support of the home energy score. It's one implementation item that was promised in the Thurston County Comprehensive Plan's new chapter on climate, and as an implementation item, as an action that you can take to further the climate change policies. I'll note here that even the Federal Department of Energy has a website encouraging the use of home audits as a way to conserve power and to qualify for federal tax credits. These audits are a well-established mechanism for energy conservation. And if you look on that website, you can also find estimated costs and certification programs for the auditors themselves. Climate policies provide an important foundation, but have to be followed by effective actions in order to effectively slow the pace of climate change so that we can manage it, so our species can survive, so we can survive. Please support the implementation of the home energy score. Thank you.
Beth Such. And then I'll call for others that didn't sign up. Go ahead.
Yep.
You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Beth Such. I live in Thurston County, City of Olympia. I do belong to Thurston County Real Estate Association for the last 22 years. My husband and I own a home inspection company. I'm afraid that there is a lack of information on your parts or those who potentially are creating this new requirement on what it means to have an energy score from the inspector's point of view. I have to admit I have not read any of this. I just got the alert from the Thurston County Association to attend this meeting. From my very, very vast experience, we have done energy audits in the past I'm part of a franchise, so they're always pushing new ways for us to make money as we do our business or whatever. I just hope you will do whatever Dawn had said and pause, get some real experts. And from my experience of the city of Olympia, who put in their rental registry, they refused to listen to me or anyone else that I know that are experts. And it is the biggest F up I have ever seen as not only the inspector, I own a home that is a rental in the city of Olympia, and I also own my own home. Should I ever, I just think about selling and having this type of new requirement added to it. It's really imperative, and have solar panels on my house. I'm all about energy. I just think, like he said, we have systems in place for the owner to have inspections prior. We have systems in place through our professional realtors to have homes inspected. I just would really ask you to think very, very clearly about, do we have enough inspectors who can even do energy audits? Is it a viable working job for somebody to be this? Can you make enough inspections in a week or a month to actually have a livable salary as a auditor, whatever that energy audit requirement is going to be? We are licensed home inspectors in the state of Washington. We are very qualified at what we do. I'm curious what your energy auditors are going to be required. Are they just any Joe off the block who can fill out a form or pass an exam? So there's just a lot. I just really would ask you to pause and think really strongly about it. And happy to be on any advisory board. Thank you.
Before I jump to folks online, is there anyone else in the boardroom? Go ahead. Well, I'll just catch you one by one. Ma'am. This could be home energy score or anything else on today's agenda. Go ahead.
Thank you, commissioners. My name is Rhonda Hunter, and I'm a property owner living for 5 decades in southern Thurston County. And as our summers have grown hotter and longer and drier, I now fear forest fire, which I never did before. As an ecosystem biologist, I know the old science maxim, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So an inconvenient truth is that climate disruption is accelerating much faster than our efforts to slow it down and avoid insurmountable tipping points, which you already know about. A small inconvenience of $300 or even approaching $1,000 to sell a house worth an average of $500,000 in Thurston County, am I close? Is pennies and enables people to measure their energy use to manage it. And here in Thurston County, PSE is still burning coal and using methane, which they call natural gas, in about half of our electrical mix. Both of these are fossil fuels that emit greenhouse gases and accelerate climate change. And now we have, a war going on, and the price of energy is rising rapidly. This home energy score estimates home energy use and carbon footprint, and it includes recommendations to improve home energy use, lower their carbon emissions, and save money on energy bills, which every homeowner benefits from. It increases the sale price of efficient homes by several $1,000s and results in more retrofits that save on energy costs. Home energy scores help owners qualify for lower rates on some loans, and home energy score laws are already successfully used in Oregon and California cities. I propose that realtors offer to pay this little cost of the home energy score as a benefit to their clients. After all, the realtor's commission on a, say, $500,000 home sale is about around 14,000 for each buyer or seller realtor. And that's a small service benefit to help with a sale. But maybe the realtors aren't really worried so much about the cost. It's likely to be something else, maybe just government intervention. But because on basically the pension of a retired teacher, I did the home energy audit. I changed to a heat pump. I added solar, which powers my home for free for about 9 months of the year, and my car, which I don't have to pay for gasoline on. So for years now, I have saved thousands of dollars in energy costs because sun's energy is free. And this will be a benefit to my realtor and anyone who wants to buy my house, because I'm getting old and pretty soon I need to sell it. And this is a homeowner buyer benefit. But first, you need to measure it to manage it. So please pass the home energy score. And if you are going to confer with the realtors as they have requested, please also confer with the homeowners, the folks who are going to buy and sell homes. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Larson Kramer. I live at 1814 East Side Street Southeast in Olympia. And I wanted to mention that there's a talk about this being a burden for the seller. Most of the time, sellers are also buyers, right? Because they're selling their house and they're usually buying a new house. So there's a very small percentage of people that are actually going to have to pay the fee, but not benefit from the fee on the other side. And these home energy scores are not recorded, so there is a mistake discussed earlier about having to pay recording fees. Just wanted to point that out. So this home energy score is fundamentally a consumer protection and transparency measure, and it's most helpful to people of modest means and fixed incomes. For these buyers, the biggest risk is that the monthly cost to heat and power the home is going to exceed what the buyer budgeted for when they were looking for homes to buy. And now they can't afford the costs in the long run, but they've already bought the home, so it's too late. So the energy score prevents that from happening. At the same time, this information also rewards homeowners who have made efficiency improvements. Even modest recognition in the market helps those investments show up on the sale price. So that helps the realtors. So that's something that can really help both buyers and realtors, and gives the seller a way to differentiate their listing and highlight its value. So this is really making the market work better. It is just giving sellers credit for improvements that they've already made. And also, this is done without mandates and without requiring retrofits and at a relatively low cost. So nobody wants mandates. This, doesn't require retrofits to be done. It's just part of the economics of a sale. So this is a practical, fair step toward implementing the county's climate mitigation plan, and I urge you to adopt the home energy score ordinance. Thank you.
Others who didn't sign up in the boardroom on the agenda topic? If not, we'll go online. Maybe Josh, could you help me with names? My eyes aren't that good anymore.
Sure, we'll go from the top left. Teresa Allen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair and Board. My name is Teresa Allen, and I'm a homeowner in Olympia in County Council Voting District 1. I'm here to oppose the proposed ordinance to require a home energy score when residential buildings are sold, and the reason is that it is redundant and does not spend money where it could best be used. So on the redundancy, an appropriate measurement already exists. PSC has information about each building's energy uses in its account system. I look at mine regularly. It is compared with similar buildings And if this is not already on the disclosure forms, it can be added. And then the buyer and seller are communicating the energy usage. I did some reading on the measurement, the HES, and there's significant scatter in the data to my eyes, both at the individual building level and on the level of the studies conducted to support the development of the tool. There are a lot of general home improvement guidelines and, as mentioned before, home sale disclosures that can really accomplish the same purpose without implementing another task or cost. So on top of that, we all know that implementing any ordinance requires a budget. It costs the homeowner, it costs the government money, and when money is spent, which I'm not opposed to, in principle, I want to see a clear benefit. And where would I see clear benefits? Not from the HES, but from actually doing something to combat climate change by making improvements to homes. So let's not shame people or embarrass them or reduce resale value or any of that. Let's get to work. Let's work with PSC and identify candidate households that could benefit from some targeted improvement activities. There are initiatives already in place. Let's contribute to those. For example, the Thurston County Climate Mitigation Collaborative has a grant-funded project that I read about called Energize Thurston Campaign, and it's supporting discounted purchases of heat pumps and has additional financial support for low-income households. At the state level, the Department of Commerce is in the middle of a process based on the or within the Inflation Reduction Act to have home energy rebates. And this again involves lower income households. A parallel program could be created so that the people who do not have low incomes but have a need or an interest in taking action could also benefit from the group discounts involved in the large purchases that will be undertaken under this program. So there are other initiatives as well out there. My position in summary is that, this is a tax and I object to the tax because it is not getting the benefit from the additional requirements on the sale of my real property when that day comes. And I would like to see that money better spent for everybody on actual energy saving improvements. Thank you.
Next is Tom Crawford.
Okay, Tom Crawford, you're up.
Thank you very much. And thank you, commissioners. Again, my name is Tom Crawford. I live in the Carleon Beach area of Thurston County. I am also on the board of Thurston Climate Action Team, which has about 1,000 members on our mailing list. And want to thank you for your support of meaningful local climate action and for your commitment to implementing the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. I'm here to speak in favor of the Residential Energy Performance Rating and Disclosure Ordinance, which you have before you this afternoon. In addition to TCAT, local workers, including the local Central Labor Council, representing about 20,000 workers, and the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1765 have endorsed this measure. I would like to also speak to some of the what I consider misinformation, distortions, et cetera, that some in our community have been promoting. The facts tell a very different story than some of what we've heard. For example, of the dozens of state and local governments who have already adopted a similar mandatory measure, a high home energy score has led to an increase in home prices. It has not significantly reduced or impacted the local real estate market. Data from jurisdictions which have implemented this policy to address the cost issue indicates that the cost will be $350 at the most. Most likely in our region, it will be under $200, very low cost. As in addition, the cost to county government and other local governments is very low. Estimated, I think it's $80,000 the first year and $20,000 a year after that, if I've got those numbers correct. And that's divided among 4 jurisdictions. So it's a very low cost from any perspective. As far as I know, from what I hear, there have been no legal issues raised among any of the jurisdictions that have adopted this program. It has also been suggested the home energy score be voluntary rather than mandatory. Again, the actual data tells us that other jurisdictions that have adopted a voluntary program have found that program to be significantly more expensive and much less effective than a mandatory program. Better information for customers is good for a healthy market, as others have pointed out. This measure would provide for that. Paired with Energize Thurston, which the previous speaker referred to, which provides incentives and subsidies for home energy efficiency measures, this is a first step toward completing the important work of the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. So let's support this measure, continuing the leadership of Thurston County in promoting energy efficiency in our communities. Some have suggested we should wait to implement this program until the state passes legislation. I think the better idea is that we move forward with this measure, demonstrate that this can work in our community, demonstrate our leadership here in Thurston County, and then have that lead to statewide action. And I would welcome, and I hope we all would welcome, the support of local realtors, builders, and others in advocating for a statewide mandatory home energy score program. Thank you very much.
Next is Chris Van Dalen.
Good afternoon, commissioners, Chair Menser, and everyone else. I'm Chris Van Dalen. I live in Olympia, and I wanted to, well, first of all, I am relatively retired on disability now, but I spent 20 years working as the executive director of the Northwest Eco Building Guild in a variety of different roles. And I'm here to speak today about the home and energy score policy that you're considering. Commissioner Menser will recall that back in 2020, I was engaged in development of this policy concept, as well as the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, CPACER legislation, and I'm really gratified to see this finally coming to a vote. I'm surprised it took us 6 years to get here, but glad to see it. At the time, I heard today some of the realtors asking for a pause and some collaborative dialogue. At the time, we actually held those collaborative dialogues, if you recall, Commissioner Menser, and we had tentative support from the realtor community. Now I understand they oppose it. Why? I'm not sure why they've changed their tune. This is a measure that will provide transparency and allow buyers and sellers to communicate about the energy performance of these homes. It supports consumer choice and healthy competition so that we can harness market forces to address climate change and the indoor health and energy efficiency, the utility bills, and all of those things. Transparency supports choice and healthy competition, and it creates a race to the top for the kinds of things we want. So this policy also addresses one of the most immediate crises, biggest crisis that we've faced in a long time, which is the affordability crisis. Energy is a growing part of a growing, increasingly unaffordable housing and energy costs. We know from research that low-income households have a 3 times greater energy burden as part of their overall housing budget. And this will help to address inequality while at the same time helping us keep the commitments for the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan that we've all put so much time into. Why would we want to keep buyers in the dark about this? Why would sellers hesitate to do an energy assessment if they are proud of their property? Let's get that information out there. and let the buyers decide. 2020 was also that time of racial reckoning and the COVID pandemic. And even at that time, we were looking at this as a positive solution that was market-based and created incentives. So now it's time to follow through on the commitments we made with the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan and use all of the tools that are available, not only this one, which is informational, but also the other investments in energy efficiency retrofits that could be empowered and informed by the information generated through this policy. This policy is easy to implement, it's cost effective, and will provide real benefits to buyers of homes and ultimately to the community as a whole as we contribute to solutions for climate change. Thank you for your time.
Kim Piper. Kim Piper, are you ready to provide comment?
Hello, I have no comment. Thank you.
We'll just call you, yeah, if you're not signed, or if you're not intending to give comment, just let us know.
Next is Sue Kokleffel. Sue, would you like to provide comment? Next is Colleen Colon. Colleen, would you like to provide comment? Next is Christine Rampa.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Christine Rampa, and I live in Tumwater, and I am addressing the home energy audit item on the agenda. I'm a local government affairs representative for Puget Sound Energy. PSC is proud to partner with Thurston County, furthering our mutual climate goals. In the past 3 years in Thurston County alone, our energy efficiency programs have saved 70 million kilowatt hours of electricity and 680,000 kilowatt hours of natural gas therms, resulting in over $38 million in incentives being provided to electric and gas customers here. Also, you may not be aware that PSC used to offer a free home energy assessment to our customers. It was a popular program that equipped homeowners with knowledge of how to improve their home energy's footprint, but it was discontinued a number of years ago. I'm pleased to share with you that PSC's home energy assessment program will once again be offered this spring. It's important to note that PSC is taking a neutral position on the proposed home energy audit ordinance that's on your agenda. The return of the PSC home energy assessment program is not connected to the draft ordinance, nor does PSC's program provide an official score as required by the legislation. However, it may be a helpful resource for achieving some of the stated goals of the proposed ordinance. These assessments will be free of charge to PSC customers and will include a 60 to 90 minute walkthrough visit at a residence and assess insulation levels if accessible. Our energy advisors will provide personalized energy savings recommendations and connections to relevant PSC resources. Thank you for the opportunity to comment, and PSC looks forward to continued partnership with Thurston County communities in the years to come.
Someone's behind the timer.
Next is Debbie Boyd. Debbie, would you like to provide comment? Next is Brandon Grote. Brandon, would you like to provide comment?
Yes, just something real quick. Hello, I want to thank you for your guys' time, and I just want to say that as a homeowner in Thurston County, I live up in Olympia. I would not be a fan of approving this and adopting it. I believe it brings an extra burden to a seller who might be trying to sell a house at a difficult time, as well as the fact that this also will hurt homes that are older in nature, brick, as well as wood-built homes of earlier timeframes, as they may not be as energy efficient. And once that score hits the MLS, it will require them to then spend enough money to raise their score or potentially lose out on potential income. or earnings from selling their house. Once again, I thank you for you guys' time, and I am not in favor of adopting this.
Thank you, Brandon. Finally, we have Michael Franklin. Michael, would you like to provide comment?
Yes, good afternoon. I oppose the proposal to require mandatory home energy audits before a property can be listed for sale.
Hey, Michael.
While
Michael?
Yes,
We can barely hear you. Can you speak up a little?
I'm very sorry. It's just my microphone.
Okay.
Let me just say, I oppose the proposal of these required mandatory home energy audits before a property can be listed for sale. I think that having them be required is onerous on the sellers and should be, it could be done to where people do it to just have that information available using the PSE version of it or other ways of doing it. It shouldn't be a mandatory item, especially before a person can sell or list it to sell. Thank you.
That's everyone online, Commissioner.
Okay, so before we move to other business, is there anyone that, for general matters, that cannot stay any longer and needs to give their public comment at this juncture? Because it won't take too much longer, but I'll give you that opportunity. Come on up. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Lori Wiedenmeyer, and I'm the Communications and Community Relations Director for the Tumwater School District, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm here to advocate for victims of domestic violence in Thurston County who no longer have advocacy support in the clerk's office due to recent budget reductions. In my professional role, I sometimes work with families that are navigating extremely difficult situations, families who have fled violence, relocated to our community, and are simply trying to create stability and safety for their children. Today, I'm also speaking from a personal perspective after recently walking alongside, this is very personal for me, walking alongside someone close to me as they attempted to navigate the court system while seeking protection. When someone's living in trauma or just beginning to exit it, their mindset and capacity are very different from what we might expect in normal circumstances. Trauma affects memory, concentration, and the ability to process complicated information. Even under the best circumstances, our legal system can be difficult to navigate. Now imagine trying to do that after sleeping in your car, not eating, or while worrying about the safety of your children. Asking people in those circumstances to complete complex legal processes, I'll tell you that's 18 pages just to request a temporary restraining order, without guidance is not just difficult, it's irresponsible to put them in that situation. In the case of this person close to me, they attempted to schedule a hearing on their own because there was no advocacy support available. They made a mistake and the hearing was scheduled at the wrong time, and as a result, the court commissioner, their clerk, opposing counsel, and the respondent all appeared unnecessarily. This was not carelessness, it was someone in crisis trying to navigate a complicated system without help. I'm confident this is not an isolated incident. When people are forced to manage these processes alone, mistakes are inevitable. That creates additional stress for victims and uses valuable court time and staff resources that could likely be avoided with proper advocacy support. I also want to be very clear that I know the staff in the offices are working incredibly hard. From what I've observed, they are doing their best while carrying extremely heavy workloads as a result of the cuts. The frustration demonstrated by the public in the lobby area is not directed at individuals. It's the result of a system that no longer has capacity to meet their needs. Over the years, I've seen families arrive in our district after fleeing other communities in search of safety. To come to Thurston County seeking protection and find there's no one available to help navigate the process is deeply concerning. Access to safety should not depend on someone's ability to hire an attorney. or flawlessly navigate a complex legal system while in crisis. I respectfully urge the commissioners to reconsider the allocation to the clerk's office and explore whether any recent legislative funding can be directed to help restore advocacy support. Our community can and should do better for the people who need protection the most. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Saw another hand over here, sir. Did you need?
Hello, Henry Valls, Olympia High School parent and coach. By now, I believe you have all heard of the catastrophic plan that Evergreen has announced to close their pool. As soon as we found out, a huge group of the aquatics community rallied because we know how important this pool is. To replace it today would cost about $50 million. If we started the process of planning it and funding it, it would take about 20 years and would likely cost on the order of $100 million. But we have it here now. Yes, it needs work, but if you owned a car worth $50,000, you wouldn't junk it because of a $1,000 brake repair. We've collected 3,800 signatures in 3 weeks with over 2,500 from Olympia and Tumwater zip codes. We are pleading with the cities, the county, the districts, the school sheriff's office, anyone to work with Evergreen to help keep this invaluable resource open. Thurston County is quickly becoming an aquatics desert. We have less pool space than we had now than 33 years ago when a population was half of what it is now. The Evergreen Pool is used for lessons, the Washington State Senior Games, 6 high school swim teams, local law enforcement, and fire departments. It was used for water polo, dive clubs, scuba diving, club swimming, and collegiate swimming. Our team has been incredibly successful because of the Evergreen State College Pool. We have been academic state champions multiple times. We have had 2-time state adaptive swim champions. This is similar to Special Olympics. We have had 4 Air Force Academy entries in just the last 12 years. I'd challenge you to find another program in the nation that has done that. We had 90 athletes this year for just 2 of those teams, and we have 49% of our students are students of color. We at Olympia High School are also planning on using this pool in a couple months for our swim and dive camp, where coaches and team leaders offer free swim lessons to all students grades 6 and up throughout Thurston County. In fact, our program had become so successful in the last year, we hosted nearly 200 students, and we have outgrown any other pool in the region. And the potential of this facility is immense. The CRC at Evergreen has so many things that this community desperately needs: meeting spaces, gyms, mat rooms, locker rooms, racquetball courts, weight rooms, climbing walls, and a beautiful pool. So please meet with the aquatics community, tour the Evergreen Pool with us. Compare it to Briggs YMCA, which has become extremely overutilized and is being damaged because of this excessive usage. Please, Evergreen is a work of art. Don't throw away a Monet because it needs a little bit of restoration. Help us with this restoration for this great community resource. Thank you so much for your time.
Last person, and then we will get to the consent agenda and fine.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yes.
I'm wearing my green. I'm an advocate of the pool for the following reasons. I grew up here many years ago, and I was a
State your name, I'm sorry, for the record.
Pardon me, I'm Dr. William Penn, and I'm a local physician, recently retired. I worked as a Thurston County Medic 1 physician in the early 80s, and then went out to Yelm and worked as a family physician for 38 years. I volunteered in that capacity also as their football coach, athletic coach, and worked at Evergreen State College as volunteering all these programs as their physician as well. I've seen tremendous things that happened at Evergreen College at the pool, where they had numerous programs going on, as Coach Valtz explained, so I'm not going to get into that. What I want to say is this: we need your help. We need to keep this pool open for the community. It's an amazing jewel. It's a phenomenal facility. It's amazing if you have to go there and just listen to children play and learn how to swim. It's amazing to see elderly people get in and move their joints around. It's a place for cardiovascular rehabilitation and musculoskeletal rehabilitation. It is something that is not offered anywhere else in this community at the cost. It's a very inexpensive place to go. Now, that being said, the school wants to close the facility. However, they had an infusion of $2.7 million that they weren't expecting. So now they're only down $175,000 to keep the facility open. And as Coach Vault said, it's a small investment. It's a very small investment to keep this facility open. We know that we can raise the money to keep this facility open. Personally, we can do that. Here in our community, we could do that. 3,800 volunteers signed a petition. If every one of them gave $10, that's almost $40,000 right there. So we need your help. That's why I'm here today. I'm here. We need your help to keep this open for not only our high school swimmers, but people to learn how to swim, to prevent drownings. I've, as a Thurston County Medic One physician, and also volunteered with the fire department for Medic One for many years, and I continue to do that. I've been at drownings, and it's horrible, and it's prevented if people learn how to swim. Thank you very much.
Shannon, did you need to leave? Okay. Come on up.
Thank you for your time. I know it's been a busy day. My name's Janet Boyle, community member. I have a daughter at Olympia High School, found her passion in swimming. And I'm here to plead my case as a mom and a community member to help us keep the pool open. When we heard all the people talk earlier today, I heard the word collaboration a lot and partnership. And I guess what I'm asking from you today is consider helping us with partnering maybe with Parks and Rec, the Y, any other organizations that you could talk to, or as a community we could get together and talk to help save this pool. The coaches both made some really great points. We are surrounded by water here, saltwater, freshwater lakes, and it's imperative. We are one of the counties in Washington State that doesn't have a big public school, public swimming pool, which is sad for, the size of our county. Sure, you can go to Tumwater Valley and spend a lot of money per month, but there really isn't a good public space. And if somebody could take over that space or help Evergreen fund it, it is a source for people to learn how to swim. And, all of the kids that across the different high schools that practice there, if that program closes, it could change the trajectory of their lives. Maybe they won't get a scholarship for college and not continue on. Maybe they'll experience a loved one in a drowning. It could just change it for them. They're choosing to swim 6 days a week instead of sitting home on their devices and partying or doing whatever else. So yeah, we're just asking for your help. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is County Manager's update.
Nothing to report, Chair.
To
Thank
report?
you.
Yep, we have consent agenda items 1 through 13. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented on the agenda.
Motion and second to approve consent items 1 through 13. Non-debatable motion. Call for the roll. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries as items are approved. Moving on to item 6, department item. Ordinance for residential performance rating and disclosure of home energy score. We have Ashley arrived from Community Planning and Economic Development, our director, to give us some background. And then, yeah, go for it.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This item is to consider approval of the Residential Energy Performance Rating and Disclosure Ordinance, which we more commonly refer to as the Home Energy Score Ordinance. Approval of this ordinance would implement priority climate initiatives from both the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan as well as the recently updated Thurston County Comprehensive Plan. The ordinance would require a home energy score be completed and disclosed when a home is listed for sale, making energy efficiency and energy cost transparent to residents in the real estate market. It would not require a homeowner to make any changes to their property. Also want to clarify a few other points. Low-income households would be exempt from the requirements, or they would receive fully subsidized home energy scores if funding for subsidies becomes available. The assessments themselves would be conducted by private sector professionals, not anyone working for the county or in the county assessor's office. And Thurston County would not receive any payments for these home energy scores. They would not need to be recorded. No permits or anything would need to be received from CPED. The CPED team did complete community engagement as directed by the board on December 10th, 2025. We had 24 members of the public testify at the public hearing that was held on February 17th, in addition to all the comments received today. And we have now received more than 300 public comments online. We have shared all those public comments with the board, as well as a staff response to the Thurston County Builders Association position statement. In addition, we've engaged with the prosecuting attorney's office to make sure the county does have authority to adopt the home energy score ordinance. And if it is adopted, it would not take effect until 1 year after today's date, in which time we would be conducting community education and working really closely with our inspectors and broader community on workforce development. And then just for general awareness, since this is a regional initiative, the Olympia City Council is scheduled to vote on a potential adoption on March 24th. The Tumwater City Council did receive a briefing on February 24th, at which time the council directed staff to bring more information back to a future work session. And as far as we know, the City of Lacey is planning to consider it in 2027 as part of their work plan. If members of the public here or online want to find more information about the policy, we have a really good frequently asked questions section. And it's on our webpage at thurstoncountywa.gov/climate/home energy score. And that concludes my remarks.
Questions for Director Arai? You mentioned the public comments. Are you able to kind of speak to the vibe, or is there a breakdown of support, not support? What was?
I think the comments you heard today are pretty indicative of what we've seen come in online. So definitely overwhelming support as well as overwhelming opposition, depending on what your perspective is.
Chair?
Yes.
I would move to approve an ordinance adopting a residential energy performance rating and disclosure policy and adding a new chapter entitled Chapter 14.36 Residential Energy Performance Rating and Disclosure to Title 14 of the Thurston County Code.
Second. Motion and second. Is there a discussion on this motion?
Sure.
Commissioner Fournier.
Yeah, I hope we do talk about this, but this has been a hard one to like wrestle with, and we've been working on it for a very long time, and so we've got some kind of differing guidance, and you know I've had to kind of figure out how I want to ensure that I'm ensuring full transparency, and so I wrote out a statement, and if you guys would allow me, I'd like to read it, and then maybe we can kind of talk through the things that I feel have been presented to us as concerns or things to consider. I've been carefully reviewing the proposal to implement a mandatory home energy score ordinance in Thurston County. While I strongly support energy efficiency, climate action, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, I have legal, policy, and operational concerns that prevent me from probably supporting this ordinance. I might still be able to be convinced. The legal authority concerns, it was mentioned that our our prosecuting attorney's team was consulted with, but I don't feel like we were given advice saying that we can do this. So it's nuanced. So that it's a technical thing that I'm trying to wrestle with. So our legal team is advised they do not believe the county currently has the expressed legal authority to adopt a mandatory HES ordinance, and the word expressed is important. They have said we might have implied authority. That doesn't, I don't know that shores up the argument for me. The state legislature has considered and repeatedly failed to pass legislation that would explicitly authorize local jurisdictions the ability to require HES scores. And from a legal standpoint, these repeated failures are highly indicative of the fact that the authority does not already exist. It was mentioned by some of the speakers that several cities have implemented this already. And that's true. From what I can see, there's about 7 to 8 cities throughout the nation: Portland, Milwaukee, Hillsborough, Berkeley, Minneapolis, Austin, and a few others. But it's important to understand those are cities. Those aren't counties. Counties and cities have different legal framework. So unlike cities, which may operate under narrow home rule powers in certain areas, counties are strictly limited to powers explicitly granted by the state. So the attorneys told us this is not expressly granted. It may be implied. Counties have to operate under explicitly granted powers. This distinction is critical. Cities may have authority in some cases to adopt local regulations, but counties function as arms of the state and generally cannot expand their powers beyond what is statutorily authorized. Implementing a mandatory HES ordinance without explicit statutory authority could expose Thurston County to lawsuits, alleging the ordinance is ultra vires or beyond the power legally granted to the county. So the technical aspect of it worries me. We would be, from what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we would be the first county in the nation implementing a mandatory HES score.
Yes,
Okay,
we would be.
so being the first is cool, but being the first is dangerous. And I like the concept, I like the intention, but we don't have a lot of money to play around with. We just had an individual up here upset because we're unable to fund our DV facilitation staff in the clerk's office. This opens us up for legal liability. If there wasn't a bunch of public outcry, I might be more prone to roll the dice, but I think this will be legally challenged. So I have concerns there. Liability and insurance implications. This one I'm maybe a little less on the fence about. Moving forward with a policy that our legal team has indicated may exceed our authority raises additional concerns about personal and county liability. Governmental liability and errors, omissions, insurance typically require the elected official act within the scope of their legal authority. Adopting an ordinance when the legislature has continuously failed to give counties expressed authority could be interpreted as acting recklessly or outside the bounds of authority, which may increase liability in the event of a
Point of
lawsuit.
order, Chair. I just want to be sure that we're not going through things that were discussed in executive session and that we're in the clear.
We don't have counsel here to help us with that, so we're kind of guiding ourselves. I would ask Commissioner Fournier to be mindful of that.
I'll do my best, but that's an excellent point. We are often left without legal counsel, and I don't like that either. I won't elaborate any further on that point. But policy and practical concerns, even if the county were legally authorized, the success of HES programs relies on a trained workforce or certified assessors, robust reporting infrastructure. Currently, Thurston County has no HES certified assessors. Establishing this capacity would require time, funding, ongoing management. That kind of is mitigated for me by the first year of it being voluntary. There's talk that would allow time to build up a workforce. That's possible. I could be persuaded on that. I asked for a written legal opinion, and I asked very plainly for a written legal opinion saying that we have the authority. If I had that, I would feel comfortable in a lot of different ways about this. I didn't get that. Instead, we got an email that was very broad and simply stated what a county's legislative authority is. It did not say you have the authority to do this. The legal email just said, hey, you have authority. That didn't shore things up for me. I've talked about a phased approach. If it was all up to me, I would go for like a voluntary compliance method, and then we would lobby the legislature to ensure that we have the express authority. I don't know that, maybe we can talk about that. I know that that's not the desired thing. That's not as effective in some people's minds as far as moving the needle on climate mitigation. But I know we have the authority to do that. So I'm fully committed to advancing energy efficiency and climate solutions. I've said if I buy a house, I want this information on the house I buy. I look at it like a Carfax. I want all the information. But I can't in good faith support a policy that carries unresolved legal authority questions, potential liability, and operational challenges. Moving forward without addressing these risks could expose, in my opinion, the county and its elected officials to lawsuits, loss of insurance coverage, and operational failure. Thurston County would be the first county, as I stated, in the nation. And again, that's cool to be first sometimes when you have the capacity to take that on. But passing an ordinance of this nature, given some of the public feedback and operational concerns, my preference is to implement it as a voluntary program for now, lobby the legislature for expressed authority. This approach provides residents with useful information while mitigating legal and operational risks. I feel we must ensure that any program we adopt is legally sound, operationally feasible, and capable of delivering meaningful benefits to our community without exposing the county and its residents to undue risk. Until such clarity and capacity exists, I want to remain cautious, and I'll be abstaining from today's vote. I'm not going to stand against it, but I'm not going to put I can't in good conscience say that I think that this is sound, safe policy. That's it.
That's it, all right. Thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Klaus?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm in support of the home energy score ordinance. I appreciate all the comments that we've heard today. Some of the points raised by those in opposition are very valid points and things that I think we should talk about throughout the next 365 days before this is implemented, if it gets passed. I'm welcoming any further discussion from those who are in opposition. You're welcome to reach out to me. I'd like to hear more about how you think this will impact you personally and in your business and with those that you work with. There are things in this home energy score. I also want to say staff have worked incredibly hard on this over the last several years. In 2024, the county signed an interlocal agreement to support the home energy score as a regionally coordinated initiative through the Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative. We all, aside from I think Commissioner Grant, were here and signed that interlocal agreement. So we have already expressed our support through the signature of that interlocal agreement. Going back on it now would, be saying that what we committed to in 2024 is no longer valid or no longer what we support. But this has been talked about throughout the comprehensive plan, climate element being added. This is something that's been talked about through our climate mitigation plan. It's been pretty much codified in several of the plans that have come forward to us today, and this is just taking the final action to say that we are going to move forward with it. The comprehensive plan includes policies that talk about the county leading coordination on this regional policy, and there are exemptions for people who are low income, which in the energy score ordinance is 80% of the area median income or lower. So anyone with within 80% or lower of the AMI are exempt. And for reference, that's for a one-person household, about $65,000 in Thurston County. For a two-person household, it's about $74,000. So we're talking, when we say low income, I'm thinking about I'm comparing it in my head to like when we talk about housing projects where we're gonna focus on people who are 30% AMI or 50% AMI. This actually raises that threshold, so more people are exempt from this based on income than are exempt from housing projects such as like our Franz Anderson conversation. So this actually includes more people who could be exempt, and there are other exemptions for federal properties, tribal properties, and anyone with an undue hardship. So if there's an undue hardship that falls outside of these exemptions, one can come and talk to the county about what that might look like. The county would subsidize the home energy score ordinance for those who can't afford it, or if the county can't afford it, those people would just be exempt. Those households would just be exempt and they wouldn't have to do it. So there are protections in place for people who can't afford this. I also want to talk about the two regional initiatives that our team worked on, one of which was the Energize Thurston campaign, which came up in the public comments. That was hugely successful, and I just want to commend staff for that. And this is the second regional initiative that they've been working on for a couple years now and have gone through many, many revisions, many stakeholder outreach events and efforts. And I want to touch on the voluntary portion because Commissioner Fournier raised that point. And a voluntary program where it sounds nice to introduce it as a voluntary program, that would disproportionately impact those who cannot afford it. Whereas passing the home energy score ordinance as it is now exempts those who can't afford it and requires those above 80% AMI or those with the means to pay this nominal fee. And those protections wouldn't be in place without this ordinance. If it were a voluntary program, it would have disproportionate impacts, but this ordinance has protections in place. So that's important to understand. I think, and definitely as a county, we must do everything we can, even if it's a small step towards our goals of reducing emissions that we've laid out in our climate mitigation plan. So this is something I feel very strongly that we must move forward with, where and I also want to continue to take comments, but this is definitely something I feel strongly about, and I know firsthand how much our staff have put into this, and it's just been an incredible lift. So thank you to everyone who's worked on getting this to this point.
Yeah, thanks. So I want to start out by acknowledging, all of the different things we've been hearing from the community. If I was to kind of chalk up all of the different feedback that I received, it's like 50-50, right? For good and bad. It's come across this, it's not made it easy for us to make a decision here, and I do share some of the concerns that I've heard from folks in here around, implementation. We don't have enough certified assessors, and we really need to work hard to make sure that this doesn't create unintentional barriers across the housing market. I'm the newest commissioner. Man, this job is hard. This job is difficult. You saw it very clearly today, how difficult this job is. That if someone would have said to me that I need to figure out how to balance whether or not someone can navigate the court system, how cows graze in grass, whether the frogs are able to crawl through, in ecosystems, and then decide how our housing stuff is going to work out. It's difficult and it's hard to balance. And, so for me, I'm just explaining why I'm going to vote yes on this, and that, it's my job to protect our community and balance those priorities. And, when it comes to moving forward on energy efficiency, the person that said it earlier around, to measure, we have to be able to measure things, and to build a more sustainable future for my kids is a big reason that I came along and decided to put my name out there to become a commissioner. I have to think about what my kids are gonna deal with in 80 years. And, and protect the people who are living here today. And also the work of all of our staff and the work of, you heard them talk about that this started in 2000. It didn't just start, maybe we all just heard about it, but it's been going on for a very long time. So, improving the efficiency of our homes is going to help reduce emissions, and I believe that's the direction that we need to move in. So, I also weighed legal clarity. I think Wayne and I were at completely different meetings because that is not the way that I wrote down very specifically that we have implied and expressed authority to move forward legally. And so I believe that that with that and with the policy goals and the input that we received, that I'm going to vote yes today, and that's it.
Commissioner Mejia?
Thank you. I also want to start off I'll first start off by thanking staff. Ashley, thank you so much, as well as Rebecca, for their work that they have done. And I also want to start by thanking the people who have been engaged, submitted written comment. We received over 300 written comments, and people who showed up to the public hearing and showed up today. And I wanted to acknowledge the concerns that we heard, specifically around housing affordability and the impact on real estate transactions. I do want to kind of, say that this has been a long process. It's been a 5-year process. The policy did not emerge overnight. It comes out of the Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative, a regional effort involving the county and our cities. And it is explicitly identified as a priority action in our adopted climate mitigation plan that was adopted by the board 6 years ago. And it came before and had its own public process. So the board has kind of already set that direction. And what we're doing today is really starting that implementation period. The stakeholder process was just as long as well. It included different focus groups from major brokerages and the Thurston County Realtors Association, Olympia Master Builders. More recently in 2024, staff concluded, that's when those focus groups took place with home inspectors, builders, lenders, energy professionals, realtors. Those were followed by additional outreach and realtor-specific listening sessions in February of this year. So I just want to say that stakeholders were not excluded from this process. They were at the table. I think the fact that there's not agreement today does not mean that there was not engagement. I also want to say that, this ordinance does not require homeowners to make upgrades. It does not change property tax assessment. It does not impose a retrofit mandate. It just requires a standardized energy score at the time of listing. And it's a disclosure tool. It is what it is. It's a similar in concept to other information already provided in real estate transactions. And I want to address the issue of affordability because I do take that issue very seriously. And I completely agree that we are in a housing affordability crisis. But I don't believe that a one-time report is what will be driving this crisis. Housing affordability is already driven by the supply, land costs, construction costs, and interest rates, things that those of you already in the industry are very familiar with. But energy cost is a real and ongoing burden too, especially for lower income households and for buyers purchasing older homes. So providing that transparency about those costs is not harmful. It helps future homeowners get a true grasp of that ongoing cost. So I believe that, we've heard kind of the pausing for more engagement and for more due diligence. And, it's one of the reasons why I think staff and the board kind of set this long implementation period of a year, because this engagement is not going to stop here. It's going to continue as that implementation starts taking effect, and it's going to be refined during this 1-year process. But I believe that this policy aligns with our adopted goals and builds on years of work that have taken place. Kind of for those reasons, I will be supporting moving forward with this ordinance.
Yes, please. Chair has to wait till last, but yeah, so I just want to say a few things. A lot of it's been said. There's a piece of legislation that was at the state level regarding this issue. It was signed on by 13 legislators, including our 2 representatives, Representative Dolio and Representative Parsley. There are 3 statements made in the first section of that I would like to just read. The first one is improving the energy efficiency of and reducing greenhouse gas emissions from existing residential buildings, including detached single-family homes, is critical to meeting the state's climate goals. Secondly, making information about energy efficiency and greenhouse gas emissions available to homebuyers will help homebuyers make more informed decisions, and that this information will cause the market to better value the efficiency and greenhouse gas impacts of energy consumed in a home. Number 3, home energy labeling programs using the home energy score model developed by the United States Department of Energy have proven to be effective in other states. Those three statements kind of sum up my position. I think those are true statements. I support them. Our legislators support them. Our climate plan was like 72 actions, and as other folks have commented, it wasn't a menu. It was to have any hope of meeting climate goals, all 72 actions needed to be gone for. And then among those 72 actions, we whittled it down to which ones do jurisdictions have, like, do we touch? And then which ones are the highest priority? And the collaborative has come up with this and identified this. There could not have been more stakeholder engagement. I'm the only one that was here when this started in 2020, and Tom Crawford, and he was the leader of TCAT at that time. Stakeholder groups were set up, I know the leadership of the realtors has changed, and I'm not holding anyone to anyone else's position, I get that. But it is true that realtors were involved in the stakeholder groups, and I sat through those. It was during COVID. I remember sitting in my office on Zoom, and I was a pretty new commissioner. I didn't know all the people on the Zoom, but we went through all the different nuts and bolts of like what would make this work. And again, as somebody else said, it's taken 6 years to get this to this board on an agenda for approval. So there's just been a lot of work from staff, from stakeholders, from the leadership of the different jurisdictions. To me, this is a small action ultimately. I mean, as Commissioner Mejia said, we're not mandating any retrofits. It's a 0.5% basically of closing costs on an average size home. We're delaying implementation for a year. If we don't build the workforce, we can easily push that back if we have to. I hope that doesn't need to happen, but we have that latitude because the staff has structured this in a very thoughtful way. I agree with Commissioner Grant that my understanding of the legal aspect that Commissioner Fournier laid out, I think what I heard was a stronger legal position than I guess what he heard. But, it's not, it is what it is, but none of Commissioner Fournier's concerns really touch on what we heard in public comment. I mean, that's just really kind of a separate issue. So I appreciate all the public input we've gotten on this. I agree with Commissioner Grant, this is a hard job, and this has been the kind of issue that makes our jobs hard. But ultimately, I think this is a small step, but a necessary step. I'm a representative on the Building Code Council, and what I've learned there and my work when I was vice chair of the Climate Collaborative is that of all the greenhouse gas sectors, when you look at the pie chart, the built environment is the toughest one to navigate. I mean, you can do a lot of stuff with transportation and cleaning the grid, and all the stuff Christine Rompa said is absolutely accurate. There's been a lot of progress done with the Clean Energy Transformation Act and getting off coal and promoting electric vehicles and all these different things. And there's the new clean building standard. We just got an e-brief from the board of what we're doing with new buildings and new construction. And I've been involved in the energy code there, but the built environment is still a huge chunk. That alone could stop us from meeting the goals that have been set. And this isn't going to do it, but this is something that's sensible, I think moderate in its scope and approach and its heavy-handedness. I think it's not heavy-handed. I think it's, as has been articulated, it's a reasonable compromise to try to tackle that really tough nut of how to deal with the greenhouse gas emissions that are embedded in our built environment. Commissioner Fournier, you're up next.
I don't disagree with those things, and I am not in opposition to this idea. I have been supportive of this idea since I've been on the commission, and I like it. Like I said, I like a Carfax report. But what I know what I heard from the legal, and I hear you guys saying, well, we've been working on this for 5 years. But the other thing that I heard from legal was when we were asking them, well, why didn't you tell us we didn't have this authority earlier on? They said, you didn't ask us. As embarrassing as that is, it wasn't until like 6 weeks ago that we're meeting with legal and they're telling, and initially.
Point of order, Chair. This definitely goes into executive session discussions.
I think that's accurate.
Okay, I'll dial it back. But, it was made very clear to me, in my mind, the difference between, we do not have expressed and implied authority. We have, it is either expressly given to us, and we have been told that it is not. We have been told maybe it is implied. And the evidence that it's not expressly given to us is evidenced by the fact that the legislature has gone 4 times forward with initiatives to try and make it to where we could have the authority, and it did not pass those 4 times. So then, you know, you can infer from there that the expressed authority doesn't exist. And then okay, in my simple mind, that's the way it works.
Then cities were included
We're
in
not a
that
city, though.
legislation. I know, but
We're a county.
but you can't make that logical leap when the legislation involves cities and counties, and we know cities do have that authority.
But cities have
Unquestionably.
broader authority than counties.
Right, but but if you're trying to say that by virtue of that legislation, it makes a legal implication, I push back on that, as I did with when it was first suggested.
And so I asked for an opinion saying we had the authority. I didn't get that. I got one that said we have authority. It didn't say we have authority to do this. And so I would like to work this out in a way that we knew would work. But other than that, you know, I hope we proceed with caution.
Any other discussion on the motion? Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Fisher Fournier.
I abstain.
So that passes. Okay, next up is item 7, information technology. Contract with Worldwide Technologies for DHS State and Local Cybersecurity Grant Program. Sherry Ilg, Director of Information Technology, to brief the board.
Good afternoon. Sherry Ilg, IT Director. Washington Senate Bill 5014 requires all counties to migrate to the .gov domain by July of 2027. This will be a substantial amount of work with far-reaching consequences if we get it wrong, which we won't. We therefore have reached out to a vendor who has experience with this type of migration. This project will happen in 3 phases. We applied for a federal grant, the State and Local Cybersecurity Grant Program, and were awarded funding that would cover phase 1 of this work. I am seeking approval to accept the grant funding awarded and sign a contract with Worldwide Technologies to proceed with phase 1 of our .gov migration project.
Questions for Director Ilg?
I do have a question. And I have all this home energy score stuff in front of me, so I apologize if I don't know where my question was for you that I wrote down, but this contract is funded through the Department of Homeland Security, is that correct?
The grant comes from the Department of Homeland Security and it goes to the Washington Military Department. They are the recipient of the grant and we are considered a sub-recipient.
Okay. And just because right now we're kind of scrutinizing very closely any grant funds or agreements that come down from the federal government, just based on what's happening in the federal landscape, have we done our due diligence to ensure that this will be a safe contract and that there isn't something implied within the agreement that, you know, gives authority for any external vendor to look at anything that the county is doing?
Yes, we've done our due diligence. We sent it through risk and legal and our contracts office, and everybody's comfortable with the wording in the grant.
Okay, and so, thank you. And so when we move on to like phase 2, will that be a completely separate group that we're working with, or will Worldwide Technologies be kind of carrying us through this whole process? Do you know?
Ideally, Worldwide Technologies would carry us through the whole process. Part of phase 1, they'll present a plan, how to get through phases 2 and 3 of the project, and we will have some decisions to make when it comes time for phase 2.
Okay. And then I just have one more question, because we saw the nightmare of TC Connect, and this domain transition is going to be a huge deal. Do you think that it would potentially anything would come up that would cause grief, or like anything that could potentially cause the same dynamics that we've seen with TC Connect, or is this completely separate? I mean, it's a separate process, but do you feel confident that it will run smoother than what we've seen in the past?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the contract with Worldwide Technologies for assistance with domain migration as required by Washington Senate Bill 5014, utilizing funds awarded from the Department of Homeland Security, state and local cybersecurity grant program, and authorize the Director of Information Technology to execute the contract and any amendments that do not exceed 10%.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the contract with Worldwide Technologies. Any discussion on the motion? Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'll abstain.
Okay, 4 in favor, 1 abstention. Motion carries. Public Works is up next. Contract award 2024 HSIP County Road Safety and Countywide Electrical Services Projects. Matt Unselman, County Engineer, to brief the board. Good afternoon.
Good morning, or good afternoon.
It's almost good evening, Matt.
It's a ways away from the morning. Matt Unselman, Thurston County Public Works. Public Works is requesting the Board of County Commissioners award a single construction contract to complete the 2024 HSIP County Road Safety and Countywide Electrical Services Projects. The Washington State Department of Transportation, local programs approved this bidding process to improve bid prices and reduce construction management costs. 4 bids were received for the combined construction project. The low responsive bid was received from Masana Construction of Gig Harbor with a bid amount of $2.711588 million. This combined project includes intersection and roadway safety along roadway corridors throughout Thurston County. All the locations have been identified using the county's local road safety plan, which was developed to match specific countermeasures to higher risk roadway characteristics. This project is is 100% federally funded and no local match is required.
Questions for Matt? Okay, is there a motion?
I move to award the contract for the combined construction project consisting of the 2024 HSIP County Road Safety Project, CP number 61546, and Countywide Electrical Services Project, CP number 61550, to Masana Construction, Inc. of Gig Harbor, Washington, in the amount of $2,711,558.80, and to authorize the Director of Public Works to execute the contract and any change orders for this project due to unforeseen conditions only, not for changes in scope, for up to 10% of the contract, $271,156, or an aggregate of $2,982,714.80.
Second.
Motion and second to approve this contract for the combined construction project. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
You're welcome. Thank you, Matt. Next up is ordinance amending Thurston County Code Chapter 2.104, Comprehensive Property Management Procedures. Also a Public Works item. Karen Weiss, Director of Public Works, to brief the board.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Public Works is requesting approval of an ordinance amending Thurston County Code Chapter 2.104, Comprehensive Property Management Procedures, which regulates the disposal of public property deemed surplus. A public hearing was held on February 3rd of 2026 regarding the proposed amendments. Public Works staff, in consultation with legal counsel, reviewed comments received at the public hearing and determined the current proposed code provides maximum board flexibility and authority in determining the best pathway to determine and sell surplus property. The proposed code amendments deal with 3 areas. Section 2.104060, Notice of Sale, which clarifies the advertising requirements for county property sold at public auction, including both personal property and real property. Section 2.104080, Sales, Public Auction, Private Negotiates, allows the county to sell surplus real property at fair market value to an adjoining property owner when the property is unlikely to achieve a higher price at public auction. For transparency, a notice of intent to negotiate the sale with an adjoining property owner would be published in a legal newspaper at least once a week for 2 consecutive weeks prior to commencing negotiations with the adjoining property owner. And finally, Section 2.104085 includes administrative changes to bring consistent formatting and numbering to the 2.104 code. So these code amendments with our property management surplus program provide for transparency in process and ensure the best use of county-owned parcels.
Questions for Karen, Director Weiss? Is there a motion?
I move to approve the ordinance amending Thurston County Code, Chapter 2.104, and comprehensive property management procedures to regulate the disposal of public property deemed surplus.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the ordinance amending County Code 2.104. Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Mejia.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to thank staff for the engagement that they did on this. I know that this was something that members in my district were very involved in and had comments. So thank you to Karen and her staff for working through those comments with me.
Any more discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Item 9 was postponed to March 31st based on a motion at the front end of this meeting. So we're up to public comment on general matters. First up, I have David Werther. On deck is John Pettit.
It is almost evening, isn't it?
Thanks for hanging with us.
My name is David Werther. I live on Fair Oaks Road on the southeast lakefront of Pattison Lake, on a property that's been in our family since 1987. We currently have 3 generations living in our home. The freight and passenger rail traffic from California to Canada crosses Atkinson Road on the northeast side of Pattison Lake. Unlike the notorious Mullen Road Bridge, it crosses at grade, which means that trains approaching from either direction must sound their horn 4 times each time they pass that intersection. Sound is measured in decibels, which is a logarithmic scale, meaning that a sound that's 10 dB louder than another sound is actually 10 times more intense. Train horns average 110 to 140 decibels at the source, and we have accurately measured that at 81 to 94 decibels in the 1 mile radius of the crossing. A Harley Davidson from the factory is about 80 decibels. A gasoline mower is 96 decibels, and as you can see from the back of the handout that I provided to you, if I'm going to stand here and scream at you, it's also about 95 decibels. 30 trains cross that Atkinson Road crossing in a 24-hour period, and in 2019 it was reported that 44 trains crossed in 24 hours. So at the dinner table, in our living room, or sitting outside, it's like sitting next to a Harley Davidson about 30 times a day. There are 8,000 residents that live within this 1 mile radius of the crossing. They represent a diverse group of residential property owners, renters, commercial property owners, military families, Woodland Elementary School students, and there are 3 other schools just outside of that 1 mile radius. It also affects wildlife on the lake, including resident and migratory species, and perhaps the eagles which nest on my property. The Mullen Road Habitat Reserve is also within a 1 mile radius. How it affects us. The train horn interrupts face-to-face and telephone conversations. It interrupts family dinners, children's studies, and it's embarrassing during business calls or meetings. We suffer lost use of and enjoyment of outdoor activities, also interruption of sleep and other nighttime activities, and distressed pets. Financially, it increases power usage and summer electric bills from not being able to have the windows open, and it decreases property values. What we're asking is that the board move forward in conducting the quiet zone diagnostic review of the Atkinson Road crossing. Thank you.
John Pettit with Scott DeWitt on deck.
Good evening, this is John Pettit out on Rich Road. First, I would make comment, having lived on Pattison Lake when I was a young person, owning property that I was going to build a house on, and I decided not to build a house on it because of the train. I can assure you that everything that that gentleman has given you is reasonable. If you have any question about the safety of that particular location, it is also a slam dunk. It has no question. I live in a spot that I hear those same trains, but the difference is my trains have to continue to go off with the whistle because there's some crossings without guards and everything else within a boundary. So very supportive, should have been done years ago. And I saw that Commissioner Klaus had put in something in the documents about supporting it. The next issue which I'm going to address has to do with, well, a couple of things. If you're going to have respect as a Board of County Commissioners, you need to also follow the law, follow the ordinances. And one of the things which is a major problem for most people developing property right now is going through the planners section of CPED. And I recently sent all of you a letter regarding this. Title 24.05.027 very specifically identifies the process for making a decision about a critical area has to be on the subject property or associated the buffer of the one that's on the subject property. Currently, they're reaching so far out onto other people's properties and affecting it. I have clients that call me constantly, people reaching out to me to try to get help that because instead of being just maybe within an acre size of where they're going to do something, this circle that they've generated by not following the code makes 11.5 acres. It is not correct and it's improper. I just want the county to follow the codes as they're written, exactly as they're written, and not just think that we can just make anything we want. And so with that, I'll leave it for your responsibility because whatever they do, those are your actions. You don't get to blame them. It's not your fault. Your actions to hold them accountable. If the person can't keep accountable and follow it, then they need to be dismissed. Thank you.
Scott DeWitt. Then I'll call for anyone else.
Hey, to have on the spot boards that I can use to help present is the greatest thing. Thank you, sir. All right, so introduction. I'm Scott DeWitt. I and myself and my family live right next to the Patterson Crossing. Meaning if I look up here at the sweet X that we have, I'll even walk. I and my two little kids live right there. So within that fancy, awesome crossing, and I thank you, sir, for speaking on it. It is a very interesting and very unique crossing in the county. I'm here in support of moving forward with a quiet zone, obviously, for the Patterson Crossing. We also live on the dead end side of the crossing. I can do a drive-by if y'all need it again, but on this side, there's less than 35 homes that crossing supports, meaning there's no through fare. The road is less than 25 miles an hour. Most people cross, including myself, less than 15. All the houses are down there. They're all residential, and they're intermittently occupied for many of them, meaning they're summer homes. It's been well over 4 years, the citizens near the Patterson Crossing, and not even just where I live, the citizens that are affected in near Patterson Crossing have been advocating for support for a quiet zone. I heard the amazing work the staff has done. I love it. It's incredible. They've been at it since 2020. What about the citizens that have been at this since 2021? We've been advocating, and I even wrote it down here. We've been advocating community petitions with HOAs coming together. We've been here at meetings, several hundreds of signatures. We've built and shared presentations to the board several times. We've had meetings with both commissioners, been at our Lake Association meeting and all over the different places, created comprehensive report. Most recently, Brian Muirhead has created a comprehensive report with my wife. Went through all sorts of stuff, data analysis. We used the computation by the FRA. And then why do we do this? So I was like, well, this is great, Scott. Yeah, everybody wants the railroads quiet down. We want to be able to talk to our kids. We want to be able to enjoy our evenings. We want to do this so we can improve the quality of life for ourselves and our families. And what really struck me more here, and we had a great conversation today about it, was the future children and families. What we do today affects them more than what we're doing right now. And sir, you sold a piece of property and didn't develop it because of the railroads. If we tackled things back then, the legislation wasn't even there to require it. It would have been grandfathered in. If we act today, our future children are impacted by this quiet zone. Continually, one of the things I hear about is risk. I am a lover of risk, both in high risk and low risk. I have children, low risk, high risk. I was a military officer. I understand everything we do, there is risk. There's risk on two sides. There's risk in action and there's risk in inaction. Both have risk. Quiet zones, truthfully, and according to the FRA, lower risk. It is fact. It's proven with the FRA, all the FRA documentation from the Federal Railroad, everybody. It's listed in our shared reports. If you guys don't have those, let us know. We'll bring them back out. We've all got it as a community. But what's really not shown, and as a father of two children and my wife, is in the risk data calculators and other things, is the long-term impacts on our families and living near these crossings. Ask my two kids, young children who do homework, whose bedrooms windows face in under 1,000 feet, 110 decimal freight trains hammering their horns 40 some odd times a day. Their windows are right there. We can't open, I'm sorry, sir. I could keep going. And then so I'll close it up. So before I step down, I'd love to call to action. Let's move forward. It's been 4.5 and 5 years of public input. Please, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Ma'am, come on up.
Oh, I'm fantastic. Good afternoon. My name's Jane Appling. I live on Fair Oaks Road Southeast, and I'm here also to join my friends and neighbors in thanking you for making time on your work session agenda tomorrow to consider the proposal to start a diagnostic review of the quiet zone proposal. So we really appreciate your making the time. You obviously have so many very difficult, very controversial issues in front of you. So for you to make time for this matter is really very much appreciated. We hope, and I think that the very hard work of many professionals who live in our neighborhood, engineers, public servants, people with lots of experience with the environment, they've been done incredible research for volunteers, I think, for anybody. They have really made a strong case. They've contacted other quiet zones all across the country. They've talked with insurance people. They've talked with planners. They've identified other examples where this has been successful. They've really done incredible due diligence and bring to you a project that I feel, is really low-hanging fruit and a real win-win for the county. And for the 8,000 or so people who live in the vicinity of the horn blowing, really 120 times a day, that blast is very loud. So anyway, again, appreciate the hard work you do dealing with controversial issues. I appreciate you taking the time on your work session agenda to consider this tomorrow, and moving it forward with staff that have also done great work on this. We hope you'll seize the opportunity to take a small action that will make a big difference. When you have so many hard things to do, this is a relatively easy one, and we hope you'll create the quiet zone for us. Thank you.
Anyone else who didn't give public comment? And Ms. Colon, did you want to give public comment on any general matter? Going to the online folks. Okay, well, that wraps public comment. Commissioners, we are an hour behind the Transportation Benefit District, so I would ask community reports to be very brief, if possible. I know we're all busy doing lots of stuff, but,
I'll give
Commissioner
a couple.
Klaus, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll give just the quick highlights.
Hit the highlights,
Yeah,
please.
just the highlights. I had been Billy Frank Jr. event at which high school was that at?
River Ridge. River Ridge.
River Ridge. Okay, it just says
This
North
year.
Thurston
You could just
Public
say we're all there.
Yeah, we were all there. That was a really good event. Let's see. I attended the 12th annual Wolves and Wine Gala for Wolf Haven over the weekend, and that event was incredible. Let's see. One highlight from that event is that they did receive funding for their treehouse project, so that's moving forward. And I know that's something I think the board supports. And Expanding Your Horizons, I attended as a workshop leader at the Expanding Your Horizons Conference for middle schoolers. It's a hands-on STEAM conference, and I presented a workshop on clean air inversions and how they impact burn bans in the county, and did an activity with the youth, and that was really fun. That was my second year doing that. And that's all I will share today due to time.
Commissioner Grant?
Just in with us needing to get some time back, I was very busy the last couple of weeks. I attended a host home gathering. We went to the Kiwanis meeting this morning. I went to all the chambers, Yelm Chamber and Thurston County Chamber. Went to the Sea Level Rise Response Collaborative, and pretty excited about some of the work that's going on in collaboration with Olympia, City of Olympia, around preparing for sea level rise. Also did Transportation Policy Board, including business representative interviews, so we were busy doing that. And met with quite a few people in the community, including Chuck Rogers and the Shelton mayor, Sharon Sherman, and that was a great conversation and great getting to know folks. And I will leave it there.
Commissioner Fournier?
I'm publishing it all online. I spent enough time in here.
All right, Commissioner Mejia.
Yes, Kiwanis breakfast this morning. I could go. I also had a meeting with Port Commissioners and the Evergreen president regarding the closure of the Evergreen pool, and having a meeting with constituents about it. But on a more impressive and I want to give a huge shout out to Brian Benjamin from our CPED team, who was recognized by the Water Now Alliance as the 2026 Emerging Leader Award. It is very exciting. That came out through their newsletter, and he was chosen, I think it's one of 6 2026 leaders across the country. So it's very awesome that Thurston County staff get recognized with the work that they're doing, and I was very happy to see that. So,
Highlights for me, this weekend I was at the Public Interest Environmental Law Conference that happens at the University of Oregon every year. It's a free conference, which is awesome, and it's just full of panels on issues. I learned about data centers and about groundwater management and a whole bunch of other things. Client meetings, constituent meetings regarding fireworks, Charter County, Board of Natural Resources were the hot topics, and the home energy score, of course. I just want to highlight one other thing. A beloved employee from Family Court, Edith Vanderwall, was stepping down from her job, and there was a great event over at Family Court, and it was great to see her. I hadn't seen her in a really long time since I was a lawyer. She was loomed large in my life, helping me do all the things that I needed to get done. So it was awesome to say goodbye to her for as a county employee. So. Yeah, I'll just leave it there. Let's go. That brings us to the end of the agenda, so we are adjourned. And we're gonna move directly into our, do folks wanna take a few minutes for a restroom break? Nope. We're gonna take 5 minutes. At 5:10, we're gonna